What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a mental freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a mental freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut. She says that I'm cool. I'm like, yeah, that's true. I believe in G.O.D. Don't believe in P.H.O.D. She keep playing me down. I'll play it for fun. Don't really know my mental.
Hi, this is John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Hypothetically Speaking. In this episode, we're at number 4 in a series we're calling Web of Deception. And joining me in this episode again is Jason Goodman. Jason, thanks again for taking time to speak with us and explain to us this crazy web of deception.
I got to thank you, John. You know, this was a great idea. And it's amazing because, you know, obviously I've been thinking about this stuff basically every single day since the port of Charleston happened. Because, you know, my understanding of this situation that we're going to talk about tonight, and a lot of it, John, we're going to have to do in our format where people who subscribe to you on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen or on patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and people who subscribe to Crowdsource the Truth on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, our subscribers will be able to hear the full in-depth conversation. And there's nothing that we're going to discuss that's going to be tortious. We're not going to be, making any kind of false statements or even potentially not even necessarily violating terms of service of any of these other social media platforms. But people may scoff at what I'm about to say, but I am going to explain how this incident in the port of Charleston was an FBI deception that I believe was calculated to get me, Jason, arrested for staging a bomb hoax and then to go on trial for, 25 years in prison where I would be made an example of, and my story would be used to sell people on the notion of things like the Disinformation Governance Board and censorship on the internet, all the stuff that everybody knows we are subject to right now, that we've been dealing with in Congress for the past 2 or 3 years, maybe since the Twitter files came out. But in 2017, John, if you think back to then, nobody was thinking like this. You did not think that if you would criticize the election results or talk about a particular vaccine and your desire to get it or not, that you'd be thrown off of the internet. But I believe that's what the purpose of this incident was. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about it, or I could just go right into the story. Where do you want to go with this?
Well, so that's sort of the bottom line up front.
Exactly.
And so that's the hypothesis, right? So the bottom line up front is Jason's presenting a hypothesis that he believes to be true based on this evidence, and he's going to share with us this story because, again, I've said it a couple times. I want you to explain it like you're explaining it to my great aunt, right? Who can barely hear in one ear and is going, what? What's a BlackBerry? Right? Who's Julian Assange? Right? So we're at episode 4. And the reason I wanted to do this Port of Charleston thing is because in the previous episode, we were looking at you with Trish the Dish outside the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK, and you guys start talking to some WikiLeaks muckety-muck guy, and Craig Murray, and Trish says something to him about the Port of Charleston. And I'm sitting there again. So this is my perspective because I know nothing about any of these people, any of this stuff, except what we've covered in episodes 1, 2, and 3 is all I know. So I'm sitting there going, what the hell is she bringing up the port of Charleston? What the hell is she talking about? Bringing this up to this guy. She's standing outside Julian's window, and this is what she's talking about. So after we did the show, I said to Jason, sequentially, whoa. Why is she even talking about this? Did you guys already go to the port of Charleston before you went to the UK? Yeah. So that's kind of where my head was at after that last episode, was like, why is she bringing this up? What the hell is she even talking about?
Right.
Why is Trish the Dish talking about Port of Charleston? Can you help us understand what is the story about the Port of Charleston and how did it come about?
Right. Well, first of all, the fact that Trish was talking about it in England was a very good spot by you. And it's interesting too, because you're coming at this, John, as somebody who knows nothing about it. And, sorry, where was that? Ecuador. It's such a difficult word to spell. Embassy. You're coming at this as somebody who really doesn't know anything about it. And you're spotting things that I might not have seen. So I agree with you. It's interesting and curious that she said that, but I had never really clued in on that before. So before we address it, let's just look at that again, because I am curious. Why would she mention that? So just to set this up, Patricia Negron and I have traveled to England primarily to go see Eric Braverman.
Hold on. Mom wants to know, is Patricia Negron the same as Trish the Dish?
Yes, Trish the Dish.
Trish the Dish is Patricia Negron. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Trish was introduced to me by George. Last episode, we spoke about how she brought a thumb drive that supposedly contained a clone of the information that Seth Rich had allegedly given to WikiLeaks. And Craig Murray is a guy who is associated with WikiLeaks. We're in England because we want to go see Eric Braverman, who was the CEO of the Clinton Foundation. And that's how I first found out about George. He was doing all these stories about where is Eric Braverman. And according to George, in our very first interview, he told me George read about Eric Braverman in True Pundit, which I had never heard of, but obviously is published by Mike Moore. And you know that feeling when somebody talks about something in a matter-of-fact way that is maybe intended or not, but it sort of makes you feel like, I should know about that just because they've mentioned it in a way that...
Well, hang on. All right, so hang on. So True Pundit. So first of all, back then, I don't think Thomas Paine had come out as Michael Moore at that point.
You're right. He was secretly Thomas Paine.
It was Thomas Paine. So let's talk about that for a second, because quite frankly, I think back then he had quite a bit of credibility. Thomas Paine... he was publishing as Thomas Paine. That was his nom de plume.
Right.
And it was True Pundit. And it's almost as if he came in and filled the vacuum that was created when they came down so hard on Shep. In other words, they started shutting Shep off and shutting Shep down, and Shep couldn't run in Telehub anymore. And True Pundit kind of filled that vacuum.
Is that true? I mean, I don't know the timing of any of this, but it looks like True Pundit is kind of dormant. He doesn't seem to be posting there anymore.
No, but I'm talking about back in the day. So I'm saying when they started really coming down on Shep and making it difficult for him to run in Telehub, that's when True Pundit kind of showed up and filled that vacuum, I feel. Well, I could be wrong. Ask Shep.
No, what Mike says is that, because he had a whole thing where he had gotten jammed up on federal charges for selling hockey videos, which that story always seemed so weird to me because he is smart, and that seemed like the dumbest idea and the dumbest thing to get arrested for. But the point is, he was jammed up with some federal charge and a lot of jail and a lot of bills. But probably what it was is that he's been involved in a lot of these types of political operative type things and got on the wrong side of somebody, and they got him in a lawfare thing. And that's what they're trying to constantly do, get you under their thumb so they can compel you to do things. That's what they're doing with me, with all this lawfare stuff. The thing that I
but from arm's length, here's the thing. I just want everybody to understand. From my perspective, True Pundit, Thomas Paine, back then, as you're engaging and George is
Right.
saying to you, well, Thomas Paine at True
Yeah,
Pundit said, bah, 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 bah.
absolutely.
To me, that's like Zero Hedge. So if somebody said
Right.
Tyler Durden and Zero Hedge just published something, I'd check it out. You know, it's a, that was
Exactly. It
as
was a
credible.
very
Right. So
popular site.
So I was on board with that. So, you know,
And so
at
they're
the
saying
time.
that Eric Braverman was going to blow the whistle on the Clinton Foundation. And he went to the Russian embassy and he was going to give them something, and then he disappeared and nobody knows where he is. And this is George's story that I know basically nothing about, except he's doing this series, Where is Eric Braverman? And I will hand it to him or whoever came up with this idea. It might have been his idiotic brother, but they had a hook, you know? It's one of those things that you never know. You just come out with something and people are like, this is stupid as hell, but then it becomes the biggest thing. And it was just the way that George was doing these presentations. He would make like a PowerPoint that was made by kind of not the best PowerPoint guy you've ever seen, but capable. And one of those things where it was sort of like he's trying and we don't care that the design is crappy, the information is good. And to add to I think this was a way of putting some authenticity on it, and that he's not sophisticated, he's all about the information. He would just do the PowerPoint on his laptop and then would just like hold his phone here. And your video on YouTube is like a phone looking at a laptop with a crappy PowerPoint, and you never saw his face. But he has like a good radio voice, and there was just something and he knew so much stuff. So this was like everybody is saying now, they were so intrigued by this, and they were on the beach, locked to their phones, watching everything.
Can I add a little footnote here? Let me just add a little footnote as we talk about how charming and engaging he is. And I want to ask you and the audience, together at the same time, do you guys see similarities in that, let's just call it animal magnetism or whatever the hell it is, right? This certain je ne sais quoi that he had, that certain characteristic, and Reiner Fulmick.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like these people are cast. He's got a good voice. He's got a square chin, so you feel like you're talking to somebody who knows what he's talking about. And there's just certain subtle things. Look, if he was a skinny, tiny
David
little
Martin, right,
guy
with the
who
bow tie?
spoke with a lisp, you wouldn't have the same kind of confidence in what he's saying as somebody who's like, well, today's news is this and that and whatever. There's a way to present stuff with confidence that I will say he's obviously good at sales. So that's what that was. It was like a sales pitch where, whatever, the guy's PowerPoint presentation isn't great, but I'm interested in this product and he's trying hard. It was like that. So I got into this Eric Braverman story, and it tied to Imran Awan, and it was just all so intriguing. And
this guy Murphy, Patrick Murphy, what's his name?
Who?
The guy from WikiLeaks.
Craig Murray.
Craig Murray. He's like the CIO or something. he's a senior guy at WikiLeaks.
Well,
he's not just like some guy.
Administrator there, right? No, he was an important guy. He's a former ambassador. Let's just look him up for a second. Craig Murray. He's a British diplomat. He's here he is.
But his role at WikiLeaks is kind of senior. He's one of the top guys at WikiLeaks, because he was talking with Trish about, does he or doesn't he have a thumb drive from Seth Rich? So, he would have been the guy, since Julian is inside the Ecuadorian embassy and he's standing outside in the street. So
the important thing for people to take away, and I've really decided that I am standing by this firmly. Seth Rich and the thumb drive from Seth Rich, the story is completely false, and Julian Assange never once said that Seth Rich was the source. When you watch that interview again with the Dutch TV interviewer, he almost just like interrupts Julian Assange in a moment where Assange realizes he's said something that might be suggestive of this guy could be our source, but then he says he's not the source. He was just commenting in general.
Can we watch that clip with our patrons when we get to the patron only
Yes.
portion? Can we watch that clip? All right, let's do that. But I want you
But
to
wait, let me just finish
roll
the idea,
this
and we're going to
piece.
get to Craig Murray, because he says he's introducing this story about the guy who got killed because he's just saying that was a whistleblower. And it's like when you're talking to someone who is a whistleblower, like when this woman who rented the house from Imran Awan started contacting us,
Right.
there's a very delicate period where they don't know if they can trust you either, because this is a person who's contacting you. So in other words, if Julian Assange has like 4 different people who he's speaking to, and then none of them are Seth Rich, but Seth Rich gets killed, and those 4 people are like, you know what? That's it. I'm not speaking to anybody. I'm not whistleblowing anything. And they go away. And so what he might have been saying, and what it sounded to me like he was starting to say, is that just our people hear about things like this and they become very nervous. So I do not believe that Seth Rich ever sent anything to WikiLeaks. And the specific question that you're talking about is that George had told a story where he was recounting the events. And, he's making a video where he's like, okay, Craig Murray said he met someone, we don't know who, at the campus of whatever university, and he was handed a thumb drive. So George sort of planted that notion. I don't know where he got it from. Maybe somebody else wrote it. Maybe he made it up. But that was something that he definitely said and wanted people to believe. So Trish, when she came to the apartment and got sort of like introduced into the story and put onto the team, she was bringing a thumb drive that had been given to her by somebody named the White Rabbit, who was like Dan Vizina or something like that. I don't know who any of these people are. I haven't spoken to them since then. But there was all this interest on the thumb drive, and then we get there to England, to the Ecuador embassy, and there's Craig Murray, and also everybody's live. So George is in the live chat and is interacting and feeding us comments, but let's listen to it. I'm basically telling Trish, hey, there's Craig Murray. You're a cute girl. You go talk to him and I'll film it. And that's what's happening.
Craig Murray, did he receive information from Seth Rich? And then George is going to feed me questions for Craig Murray and I'll whisper them to you. So try to politely squeeze in there and speak to him. He's right there, standing right there. Mr. Murray, can I introduce you to Trish Negron?
Hello, it's very nice to meet you. We're from the U.S. and we were wondering, we've been following the Seth Rich story for quite some time now.
I've seen you on YouTube.
Have you really? Crowdsource the truth you're watching. It's really an honor to meet you, sir.
George Webb, is that?
Yes. George is in the United States right now, working on as the part of the story that led us down a potential dirty bomb that may have been aboard one of the cargo ships that came into port in Charleston the other night. So it seems to have set off some sort of firestorm. And in the meantime, we came here to see, we wanted to find Eric Braverman, who was the CEO of the Clinton Foundation and had gone missing.
It's vanished.
Yes, and so George Webb's series, of course. And when we heard Julian was supposed to come out, we were
Well, now, do you want to hear the whole thing again, or just that part where she asks about the port? Because you're right. It's
to me, just the part that she asked about the port was just like, huh? Why would he know about this? Why would anybody know? What is this? What the hell is she talking about?
Okay.
So I understand the Seth Rich story. Like, Seth Rich is dead and Julian's hiding upstairs and it's Hillary's emails. And she's asking about a dirty bomb in the port of Charleston. What the hell is she talking about?
Well,
and he looks at her like, huh?
The non-nefarious explanation is that, this video here at the embassy we are making on June. This is live on June 22nd, 2017. And so it's only a week since that Port of Charleston thing happened. And it was kind of a big, gigantic deal where George went to jail. And it could have just been fresh in her mind. He did just mention George. And she's saying he found that. But I did find her kind of looking around with her eyes. I was watching it now with a new take that I haven't ever had before. And she's looking around a bit frantically, maybe as if she realizes she's delving into an area that she doesn't want to talk about, but it's so fresh in her mind because she's part of a scam to try to get this guy. And I'll tell you something else that happened on this trip that was very weird. Very weird.
Yeah.
So it was just Trish and me.
Right.
And I am not the type of person who loses my cell phone or my credit card, or I don't lose things that often. I'm not going to say never, but I'm not going around losing things. And, we were running around like maniacs, getting barely any sleep when we were in New York. Now we're in England, jet lag, all that. We took a taxi from like there to some other location. George had us going on like essentially like a wild goose chase, almost like a scavenger hunt, which I was enthusiastic about because it made the show interesting and I was playing along with it mostly from that standpoint. But in retrospect, he was just running me ragged. So Trish and I go to this one place and I paid for the cab with my American Express card. And then I was like really dozing off. And then after we left that place, my credit card was gone. And it was just totally gone. And I couldn't get another American Express card quickly enough because we were only in England for a short period of time. And if I didn't have another credit card, we would have been in a lot of trouble. And I'm just wondering if the only other person in the taxi with me might not have somehow seen me drop it or palmed it or somehow made sure I didn't find it. I don't know. But there's a lot of things that happened with Trish well after this that made me not trust her and made me think that she was definitely a part of a team of FBI undercover operators along the lines of those that Special Agent Christopher Long testified about at the trial of Adam Dean Fox. And that's the guy who was accused of kidnapping the Gretchen Whitmer, the governor, right? So Christopher Long, he's a special agent who testified in this guy's trial. FBI is accused a wanted tyrant, Governor Whitmer, tied up on the table. I don't know. This guy is in a lot of trouble, but do they have Christopher? Yeah, here we go. Earlier Thursday, FBI agent Christopher Long testified about how investigators got interested in Croft. So in the course of this testimony, under oath, he talks about how the FBI hires contractors to interact with members of the public on the internet and in other undercover operations. And I mean, that's what an FBI agent said under oath. I don't know if that's true or not. That's what he said. It surely sounds like what they were doing to me.
And we know the State Department doesn't. So again, who's paying for it and whose budget it comes from? I'm less worried about if it's coming from, this particular building or that particular building, right? I'm less worried about whose budget it is, whether it's the GEC or the FBI.
No, you should be very worried
NSA.
about that because the GEC is very 2016. I don't even want to hear about the GEC because it seems like what's happened now is, see, they're not just sitting there in a static whatever. Remember the National Institutes of Health from about September 22nd, 2022 until last week, they had this whole entire staff webpage dedicated to a guy who's got the same exact name as George's brother. He hated the video I made about it, and now the webpage, it's a little different. I don't know why that is.
That's bizarre. All right.
Isn't that unusual?
I still have no idea. Tell me about the beginning of the, how I think I went to Charleston once in my life. How do you even get involved in Charleston?
I'm glad you asked.
George is sleeping on your couch and bathing in your shower.
No.
It's like washing a giraffe.
No.
All right. So how do we get to Charleston? Tell me what's day one Port of Charleston story?
It's actually, we need to start at day 0, which is appropriate. 0 day. Boom. Here it is. Okay. So people are going to recall this. Okay, yeah, so this had to be reloaded because it got deleted. But this is Crowdsource the Truth Legacy, originally broadcast June 13th, 2017. This is one day before the Port of Charleston. And what has occurred here is George called and he says, hey, he knows that I liked InfoWars and that one of the things that caused me to start Crowdsource the Truth is that Alex Jones, 21st Century 3D was basically in trouble. We lost a $2 million contract. 3D was in the toilet, and I was looking for something new to do. And I had knee surgery, and I was watching all this stuff on YouTube, recovering my knee, and I was watching a lot of InfoWars, and Alex Jones is like, hey, we need InfoWarriors, and, whatever he said. And I was like, oh. So I thought he was hiring people. So I sent emails and everything. I was like, hey, I got nothing going on in New York. I'll move to Texas and come work for you. I've got a lot of production experience and stuff. And they never wrote back. So I said, well, maybe I'll just start making YouTube videos and that'll be good. Then I can have something to send them. And I had no idea what to do. But then George knew that I was sort of like trying to get onto InfoWars because it seemed like the only way to get into alternative news at that time. And so he calls me one day and he's like, oh, you want to have Robert David Steele on the show? And I said, sure. Now, I should even go to day -1 because what was happening is, George, he did not move in. He was not my roommate. He didn't move in. And I don't even like jokes about that because it's the bullshit that his brother says. I was trying to start a YouTube channel. He was staying in hotels every night. I was saying, look, if you want to come to New York and crash on my couch, you can do that. I can't pay you. If we're going to go to DC, if we're going to go to West Virginia, I'm going to be paying for hotels anyway if I'm going around and doing this kind of independent journalism. In my view, I was thinking like a producer. I was thinking this is the cheapest way for me to get on-screen talent for a show that I'm going to make. So this was strictly the least expensive way for me to get a business off the ground. And so George says to me, we're going to go to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. And I said, fine. He had a rented car that was parked up at his son's apartment. His son was going to Columbia Medical School or something at the time. So he's up like 120th Street or something. It's a long subway ride up there and then a car drive back. On a good day, that's, I'd say, 90 minutes. It's probably 2 hours, and it could be 2.5 to 3 hours if whatever. Mm-hmm. So he leaves to go get the car. I'm packing the equipment, packing everything for a big trip. 2 hours go by, 3 hours go by. It's kind of a long time. I call him. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, oh, man, I had to hit the road. My audience is up in arms. They don't like you. And I was like, fuck you, man. I'm paying for everything for the past couple of weeks. We're supposed to be a team. A bunch of unknown jackasses on the internet have something to say about me, and you just leave without telling me anything? I was so pissed off at him, John.
Yeah, I understand.
I was going to tell him to fuck off and never contact me again. But keep in mind, I had started Crowdsource the Truth because my business just was failing. My second marriage had ended. And I was like, you know what? There's still an opportunity here. And if I get angry and tell this guy what I really think, that opportunity will go away. Maybe I just eat this and let it go, apologize, and say, fine, let's carry on. And I was also concerned that if I did that, because he's like, oh, the audience hates you. I'm like, well, gee, maybe then I'll have no YouTube show. There's a lot of reasons why I should just not get angry about this. Maybe I get angry about too much stuff. I just lost my wife. I did all this. You know how you get with this thinking. In retrospect, they were working on my head. And I shouldn't have thought that. I should have told them to piss off. But maybe not. We wouldn't know any of this right now if I didn't. So anyway, I say, okay, fine.
So he basically says he's on the turnpike. He says, I'm on the turnpike. I'm heading
He's
south.
already halfway to DC.
I had to go.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And you're like, huh? I'm packed and ready to go, and you just left.
Well, not only that, I've wasted 3 hours packing up all the gear and everything, and now I just got to unpack it. It's pretty...
Reminds me of one of the women I dated in between my wives.
Women are one thing, but from the standpoint of somebody that you're trying to get into a business venture with, and I should have, on that basis, said, you are incompetent, you're out. And I've gotten a lot tougher with people. That's why. People like Manny Grossman have had a harder time running their bullshit on me, because I think he's also working in this program, although I have no evidence. That's speculation and opinion only. Pure opinion. So anyway, George calls me after we sort of reconcile this argument. Do you want to have Robert David Steele on the show? I say yes, and let's look at that.
And who was Robert David Steele? Who is Robert David Steele that anybody would give a hoot that he would be on the show? Who is he?
Robert David Steele is an individual who claims to be a retired CIA agent, officer, some sort of CIA something, who's run false flags for the government, who was a fixture on InfoWars and would talk about alternative stuff. Oh, now here's the thing, John. We're hitting up on our 30-minute line here. Let's watch a little bit of this Robert David Steele clip, and then we're going to are going to have to head over to, it's actually better anyway, because on the sponsor exclusive segment, we're going to be able to talk about stuff that would prompt George's brother to strike the videos like crazy.
All right, so former CIA guy on InfoWars quite a bit with Alex Jones, and George says, do you want to have him on the show?
Right. And from my standpoint, I'm thinking, hey, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I actually said to myself, I like the stories that Alex Jones covers, but his style is too over the top and too wild. And I want to make a more serious version of Alex Jones that is more focused on scientifically examining evidence. Basically what everybody sees here now on Crowdsource the Truth. So let's take a look at what Robert David Steele had to say, and then we'll head over to the sponsor exclusive.
We're live now, folks. We've got George in Washington, D.C. with Robert David Steele and Trish, of course.
They were actually in
Welcome,
Virginia.
Everybody. Great to see you guys.
You're George.
Yeah,
Everything they said about George was not true. I love him.
that's good. That's good to hear. How's the sound, everybody out there?
Anyway, this is a pretty lengthy video. Robert David Steele goes into a litany. Oh, actually, we better not show too much of this here because, he talks about a bunch of stuff that YouTube subsequently decided you can't talk about. So this is exactly what I'm saying. We're just commenting
Now,
on
he's
that
dead,
video.
though, right? He has since died, supposedly.
Well, yeah, I have his
like,
death certificate.
Okay, so like General Francisco, what was it? Generalissimo Francisco Franco
He's still
is
dead.
still dead. We
Yes,
believe that Robert David Steele
Our
is still
top
dead.
story tonight.
Right. Apparently, he's still dead. So, all right, listen, we're about out of time here. For those of you who are patrons of mine and not yet patrons of Jason's, please join one of Jason's channels. Either you can go to Odyssey, Crowdsource the Truth. It's at Crowdsource the Truth at Odyssey, or you can go to Substack, or you can go to subscribestar.com, or you can go to patreon.com. But you can also watch some of his content on Rumble. But all of this legacy stuff that we're covering here is, I think, really only going to be found on Odyssey.
Yeah.
So not a knock to anybody at YouTube. It's just not there.
They deleted it.
Well, what are you going to do, right? So, it's but that this content is at Odyssey. So if you guys want to watch some of this legacy stuff, it's at Odyssey. And really grateful for those of you taking the time to join us here at Hypothetically Speaking, episode 4, Web of Deception. We'll be back in just 4 minutes or so with our patrons over at Patreon, Subscribestar, Odyssey, and all that other stuff. Thank you guys for joining. I'm John Cohen.
What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut in the ocean. What you know about rolling down in the deep? When your brain goes numb, you can call a man a freeze. When these people talk too much, put that shit in slow motion. Yeah, I feel like an astronaut. She says that I'm cool. I'm like, yeah, that's true. I believe in G.O.D. Don't believe in T.H.O.D. She keep playing me down. I'ma play her for fun. Don't really know my mental. Let me give you the picture like stencil. Falling out in the drought. No flow rain was pouring down. See that pain was all around. See my mom was kinda loud. Didn't know which way to turn. Flow was cool, but I still felt burned. Energy up, people feel my surge. I'ma kill everything like this burn. What you know about rolling